These are the plaintiffs, Carol and James Castle. They say the defendant's a former renter of theirs, and she was the worst. Loud parties, garbage strewn about, and she also smuggled a dog into the place. Eventually, the woman moved out, tried to use her security to cover the last month's rent, but also left a bunch of damages, and they've got no choice but to sue her, here and now, for the $2,000 they're owed. This is the defendant, Melanie Kelly. She says the plaintiffs were at what was supposed to be her apartment frequently and expected her to abide by their rules. That's right, all of a sudden she had roommates. It got to be too much for her. The plaintiffs told her she better move immediately or they'd dispose of all her belongings. As far as leaving damages at the place, she didn't. So there. She's accused of being a rotten renter. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $1,150 for overpayment of rent.
All parties, please raise your right hand. Be seated. Come to order, please. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're
Carol
welcome.
Castle, James Castle, and Ashley Castle. Ashley is missing, right?
Yes.
Okay. You are suing Melanie Kelly, your former tenant, for $2,000, $1,400 for the rent of December, and $600 for time and travel expenses. Okay, you're counterclaiming against them $1,150. Part of that for December rent that you say they didn't let you fully enjoy because they kicked you out. And the rest for expenses that you say you had to incur and a deposit that you want returned to you, part of it. Tell me what's going on. How did you folks end up as roommates?
This was my daughter's apartment originally. She was on sabbatical for a year. And she was doing training in Australia. So she didn't want to give up her apartment. So we agreed to pay half of it because my husband and I go back and forth to the city. So the deal was originally that basically she would have the apartment mostly to herself. I had just had...
Who leased it to her? Your daughter or you did? Who does she have the discussions with?
My daughter,
okay.
Ashley.
Do you have any emails or?
I do.
May I see them?
Yes, no problem.
Do you have a contract in writing? Like, do you have a lease?
It was just an email.
Okay.
I have copies of all of her emails as well.
I'm going to get it from both of you now.
Okay.
Hi, just wondering if you have the room for rent still. I'm a 28-year-old working professional. What do you do?
I'm an assistant to an investment banker, and I have my own company.
With a small dog who is 3 years old and really well behaved, also very cute if you like animals. I don't smoke. I'm a social drinker and a pretty clean person. A pretty clean person.
No one's perfect.
Far from it.
This is your daughter saying, I will be leaving the country for at least a year, so you will be living with my roommate. She is a flight attendant who is in town about 1 week per month. She lives with her husband upstate and just uses the apartment as a crash pad. Are you a flight attendant?
No, but I worked for the airlines. I was not.
Okay, why is she lying and not saying it's my mother and father? Because then she might not get a renter.
I don't know.
We have never smoked in the apartment, so that should not be a problem. According to you, it became a problem.
Yes, it did.
None of
Also-
us smoke.
Do you smoke?
No.
According to you, he smokes?
Yes,
When is he smoking?
when he was in the apartment.
And in fact, you emailed Ashley about it, right?
I did, yes, because I have bad allergies.
All right. So then what ends up happening? She lives with, you're living together. No, you're living together. You're not living together. How often are you using the place?
Between March and November, probably once a month. And I used to let Melanie know ahead of time that I would be coming, when I would be coming. And then it got to the point that every time I would go down to the apartment, it would be in disarray. We had a problem when she first moved in with having to have the exterminator. And I asked her several times, I made it very clear that she needed to take the garbage out every day. There needed to be no dishes left in the sink overnight. Because
And when you would go down there, there'd be dishes?
there'd be garbage. Garbage was always there. There were 2 garbage cans and they were always full every time I came. And I'd ask her, please take the garbage out every day. I do not want bugs. We've had this apartment for 4 years. We've never had bugs. All of a sudden we had roaches.
At some point, you asked her to leave. She actually said, I'm leaving, right?
That was later on.
And when you say you're leaving, it's November what?
November the 30th.
Okay, and you're telling them that you're going to leave at the end of December.
December
And what
31st.
reason do you give for leaving? I mean, you don't have a lease, so you don't have to give a reason, but you did give a reason.
I did. I gave multiple reasons. The first reason was there was a male tenant staying for a majority of November, and apparently all of December he was meant to
Who
be
is
there.
the male tenant?
I believe it was her husband.
Well,
James.
wait a minute.
James.
Aren't you her husband? Okay, that's
was-
the man
it was
who was the
James,
male
so,
tenant, right?
yes,
Like you would
James.
recognize the male tenant.
Yes.
Okay, that's him?
Yes.
Okay, and he was there for how long?
Pretty much the entire month.
Were
He
you
would
there the
leave maybe
entire
a few
month?
days, then come back.
November and December, 4 days a week.
Right, but that wasn't part of your daughter's email to her. She said there was a flight attendant who would use it as a crash pad. How does that mean that she's going to be rooming with your husband, Ashley's dad?
Because
I mean, you understand how like a young person maybe would not like that.
originally, when she first discussed subleasing the apartment, a friend of mine who was a flight attendant was going to be there.
Okay, so you changed the terms on her. So,
So,
you admit you
well,
changed the terms on her.
No,
so
I did
They were
not.
never referring to you. Well, there was never anything in there that's talked about a man being there. That's qualitatively different. She can't hang out in her pajamas. She, there's some guy who she doesn't know there. That's kind of different, don't you think?
Well, I do. I agree with you.
So now you give
However,
notice that you're leaving, and that's November 30th. And then there, between November 30th and the day she leaves, which is December 15th, tell me everything that happens then.
I asked her to leave a check for the 1st of December for rent. She didn't answer me. She didn't acknowledge the note. She didn't answer any of my emails, my texts.
And then on the 30th, you tell her, rent's due the 1st, but by the way, use my security for rent.
Yeah, correct. 'Cause
Right,
I'm
which you
moving
can't
out.
do. You know
Well,
that. I mean, everybody does it, but they
yes,
can't do
yes,
it.
I
Okay, because
understand
security is security and rent is rent. All right, so now when she tells you I'm using my security for rent, you say, no, you can't do that. You're going to have to get out.
I said, if you don't want to pay rent for December, I can't afford to have you stay here, so you're going to have to leave.
Okay.
And she didn't. And so she got rid of the dog at that point because the one time I came down in November, the carpet had literally been getting worse and worse every time I would come there. This time it was just totally destroyed. And
How was it destroyed?
it used to be a green carpet. I have pictures of it if you'd like to see it.
Yes, please.
The pictures with the dogs are what the original carpet looked like. It was fairly new at that time.
Do you have a receipt for the carpet that was installed so I can see how new it was?
It wasn't installed. It's an area rug.
Oh, an area
from
room. Okay.
Pottery Barn.
Do you have a receipt
I
for
do
the
not.
rug so that I know how old it is?
I do not. It was
Okay.
probably, it was less than a year old. So when I went down this last time and it was like totally destroyed,
Oh, that dog is peeing on that thing. There's no
I
question.
asked her,
May I just make one point, please? My
Yeah,
dog had never urinated on that rug until her husband moved in. I was at work when her husband was there. My dog didn't know this person. I'm sure she was frightened.
You then tell her she has to go, and when she tells you that you have to go, according to you, she says a few other things too.
Yeah.
And you have the text. Let me see the text.
Okay.
Melanie, this is to advise you in writing your proposal is not acceptable. Security is not rent. Therefore, you are liable for December rent. Once I have an estimate on the floor and take out for the other damage, rug, ottoman, etc., I will refund the balance of your deposit. If you choose not to pay December rent, then you have 1 week from today to vacate the premises. Now, tell me about the other damage. According to you, there's damage to that rug, which you show me the pictures of. Talk to me about the floor, the ottoman, etc.
the ottoman just has all holes on the top
Do you
of
have a
it.
picture?
Yes.
Yeah. And what about the floor?
There are black stains on the floor.
From the urine, I take it?
That pee tray that she had. Apparently, I don't know if it leaked or if it was condensation because there was so much urine. Or again, if
Did
it
you
was,
have a pee tray in there?
I did on occasion because, again,
Yeah.
she was starting to get up. She was getting upset. People were there when I wasn't there that she didn't know.
You acknowledge that the dog damaged the ottoman, right?
I mean, she was up there.
Okay, so then what happens?
she brought the police in.
What day did the police go over there?
Incident date was the 3rd of December at 5:45 p.m.
Okay, but I'm seeing texts that are on December 2nd. Melanie, I'd hoped we can. She texts you, Carol, what you did with my things is unacceptable. I've notified the police and I know my rights. We've been through this before. You're not to touch my property. So what is she accusing you of having done to her property? And
I picked up her stuff that was in the living room. She had a few.
And put it where?
Put it in a box in the cart with all of her dog stuff alongside the crate that she had the
And
dog
left it
in.
where? In the living room?
In the living room.
So you tidied up. What do you say she did?
So when I came home, she got very aggressive with me. I'm changing the locks. You need to get out now. She used profanity. She followed me into my room where I shut the door, screaming at me. I called the police. I had the police come and explain to her she's not allowed to pack my things, throw my things away. She's not allowed to change the lock. I went in my room and shut the door. At this point, I didn't really have a choice. I didn't have anywhere else to stay at the moment.
You moved out on December 15th.
December 15th.
And you acknowledge that she moved out on December 15th.
Yes.
Okay. So do you have the receipts for the damages from the dog?
This was the person that came to check out the floor.
You have a counterclaim against him for $1,150 for what?
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. So, did the plaintiffs commit fraud here? What do you think?
I think he did commit. They did commit fraud.
Why?
Well, it's fraud, you know.
Why is it fraud?
Because he wasn't supposed to be there for more than a week.
1 week out of the month.
1 week out of the month, yeah.
Okay, so 4 days out of every week. That's fraud?
Yes, it is. That's way more days, and that's not what the plaintiff...
And it would make a difference in the living situation.
Yes, definitely.
Fair enough. Going inside the courtroom.
I'm counterclaiming for half the month of December, as I had to leave on the 15th. And also because she started to pack my things and threatened to throw them out, I had to get temporary storage and also temporary lodgings.
Wait, but the police told her she couldn't do it.
This was before that fact. On November the 30th evening, I gave my notice. She threatened me to take my things and throw them out.
And then when she packed the stuff and put it by the side of the door, you call the police because you know your rights, and the police told her that she couldn't do it, and then she didn't do it.
Exactly.
And I really find that you left because it was uncomfortable, not because you had to, because I don't think you had to, because the police put her in her place. So I'm not going to order them to repay you on the storage or the rent. The security deposit, let's just call the security deposit covering rent for December. That's what we're going to call it. So now we got to talk about your damages and how she left the place. The dog did some damage. And if you see that your dog's in a situation where the dog is stressed out and doing some damage, then remove the dog before the dog does further damage. The dog is an animal. You have to put the dog with whoever you had the dog with when you finally figured that out. But in the meantime, it's not like you get to skate on the damage that the dog did. It's the depreciated value of a rug. You acknowledge the stuff on the ottoman, and the pee pad is underneath where she's spotting it. So that's how it goes. Oh, they have a $200 pet deposit of yours.
I had paid that as well.
Got it. So we got to account for that as well. I'm finding in your favor for the entire amount of the floor damage. I'm finding in your favor in the depreciated value of the rug, which you have to understand means what you'd get if you sold it at a garage sale. Okay, that's what it means. All right. If it had not been urinated on, what you would get if you tried to sell your used rug at a garage sale. All right, which I'm allotting a generous $100 to. You don't get replacement cost in court. And I'm also awarding a depreciated value for the ottoman that she acknowledges. That puts me at the amount of $915. The security deposit's already used for December rent, which I find in their favor on. And the $200 of your pet deposit needs to be taken off of that $915. So I find in favor of a net judgment in favor of the plaintiffs in this case in the amount of $715. That now takes care of both the claim and the counterclaim. Good luck, folks.
Thank you.
First, we get a chance to see what the defendant thinks about the outcome of this case. What's your feeling on this verdict?
Well, I'm disappointed, but I just really hope it doesn't happen to someone else.
What's that?
Renting from people who are deceitful and don't tell you who they really are.
Right. Well, what was it like there when, what was it, kind of like a strange smoking man hanging around there all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. It was pretty uncomfortable.
Not what you signed up for?
Not at all.
What was he smoking?
I don't know, you tell me. Living better arrangements now?
I am, yes. It's
okay.
better.
All right,
Much better.
right around this way. All right, so come on out here. And you satisfied how this came out?
Oh, not particularly, but better than...
What's dissatisfactory?
Well, I just felt like she made it seem like my husband was living there full time. My husband was there like a couple days a week for 1.5 months, and we weren't there the whole rest of the time.
Why weren't you 100% straight with her about what she was getting into exactly?
I didn't make those arrangements. My daughter did, and I don't really know why she didn't tell her. Originally, as I said, there was a flight attendant that was supposed to be moving in there. That didn't work out.
Yeah. So?
She had put it on Craigslist that way, and I guess she just left it that way.
Over to Harvey.
She knew I wasn't going to be there.
You know, if this were a lease, like a 1-year lease, I think that the defendant could have broken the lease and walked away based on fraud, because I think it was dishonest to misrepresent the living situation, and it was a big deal. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.